The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The South Kesteven series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to South Kesteven again, everybody, where the sun is properly up in the sky now and it looks beautiful, this bit of Lincolnshire. It's always great when the sun's out, isn't it? It just brings out the best in a place, I think. Now, this particular village has got a link to a war which we've never spoken about on TVI before. That would be the Spanish Armada in 1588. Let's see what its connection is as we journey around Swayfield. Swayfield, open land with a track. We continue with South Kesteven today, foraying deeper into the Lincolnshire countryside. With Corby Glen behind us after yesterday, we're now heading south into the smaller communities close by. Next up we have Swayfield, a lump smaller than Corby Glen with less than half of its population. It's just over 3 miles from the A1 and 9 miles away from Grantham. It has approximately 138 houses. The modern day Swayfield village is nothing like what was here in medieval times. During World War II, Swayfield was the site of 2 dummy airfields, the remains of which can still be seen today, but it's the village's connection to another war that makes this one famous. At the time of the Spanish Armada, Swayfield was reputed to have been a site for signalling beacons. A modern fire basket stands in the village today, erected for the 400th anniversary in 1988. We'll explain more about that in due course. The beacon stands at the end of a lane which leads down to St Nicholas's Church, the only remaining building from a former medieval settlement. The rest was wiped out thanks to a dose of the plague. The site of a deserted medieval village has been identified nearby, and that was probably the Ville of Sudwell. Traces of earlier settlements in the form of barrow burials have also been suggested, but these have never been proven. Elsewhere, it has a pub called the Royal Oak on its high street and a small village hall. This one's got a lot more than you might think. Let's go walking in South Kesteven once again. Welcome to Swayfield, everyone. This first section will take us around some of the residential areas of the village, so let's talk about the place we're in a bit more. Swayfield is a small rural village situated midway between the towns of Stamford, Grantham and Bourne, with just north of 130 houses. Some are built of stone and some of brick. Swayfield has the distinction of lying on the highest ground traversed by the East Coast Main Line between London and the Scottish border. As we know from yesterday's episode, the straight length of railway track through the village was used to test steam engines for speed, and it was here that the famous Mallard broke the speed record. Swayfield has grown rapidly in the last 10 years as more people working in cities seek sanctuary in the countryside for their homes and families. However, there remains a feeling of friendliness and community spirit in this village, which has lost none of its rural charm. Swayfield used to possess its own primary school until 1982. In that year it closed down and the 12 remaining pupils transferred to Corby Glen. This is the village hall. Marking the new millennium, this cost £126,000 to build. The old village hall, which served Swayfield for the previous 50 years, was an ex-army corrugated iron-clad hut that stood on the same site. It was demolished before construction work began, and its replacement is much bigger, with modern facilities for communal events. These include a kitchen, a committee room and toilets. Later, a stage for theatrical productions with lighting and a sound system was added too. Among the donors for the hall's construction were the Carnegie United Kingdom Trust, which gave £1,000 to provide carpets and equipment for indoor bowling, which is a weekly activity here. Now we've got a parish notice board out here at the village hall, so you know what that means. Card going on the board. That's another one down in South Kesteven. Now there's also a little map of the place here as well. If I turn the camera around, I'll show you said map. This is a slope outside the village hall, so I'm going to have to hold the camera, otherwise it'll look a bit wonky. There you can see Swayfield right in the centre of the map there. Not a very big place, is it? You can see, it's just basically this little cluster. There's a few bits and bobs on the outside, but quite frankly it's just this sort of main bit, isn't it? And we are on this northern road up here. Village hall's up there. All the interesting stuff is down here. Let's make our way towards that. This is the only pub in Swayfield, the Royal Oak. It's a mainly 19th century building with stone walls and oak beams. It's 1.5 stories tall and sits under a steeply pitched gabled slate roof. The oldest part of the pub, however, dates from the 17th century. That fact has been confirmed by historical records which state that Oliver Cromwell once stayed in an old inn at Swayfield. That building might not have been the Royal Oak, but it was definitely whatever stood here at that time. Next up we have a bowls club. This one is located at the Swayfield Recreation Ground. In 2022 this hosted a family picnic to celebrate the coronation of King Charles III. This included entertainment throughout the afternoon, games for children and the presentation of a commemorative coronation mug. Every year, Swayfield Bowls Club hosts the annual GDBA President vs Chairman's game for the Leader Shield. Now, just after the bowling green, there's another kind of green here in Swayfield, and if you look carefully here, you can see there is an iron beacon. You probably can't see because the sun is very bright over there, but it is there, trust me. We're going to take a closer look at that beacon in a moment because this is kind of a commemorative thing. It's to do with the Spanish Armada in 1588. Now, this might be a small landmark in the grand scheme of things, and we do see a lot of iron beacons across the country. However, this one has a purpose which connects the village to the Spanish Armada in 1588. It was here, in Swayfield, where one of the beacons was lit in a chain across the country to warn of the threat of invasion by the Spaniards. The reason the beacon was so far inland might not immediately make sense, but consider this. At that time they were set along the Lincolnshire edge, and the geography of the land has changed in the last 400 years. In 1988, Swayfield once again had a beacon to commemorate the quarter centenary of the Spanish Armada, and that is this beacon at the end of Church Lane. On the subject of war, Swayfield was also the site of 2 dummy airfields during World War II, and the remains of those airfields can still be seen today. Now we come to the church with its distinctive thatched roof. This is dedicated to St Nicholas with a 13th century battlemented tower and sits surrounded by farm buildings on sloping ground a few hundred yards from the East Coast main line. It should be noted that the church is 200 yards away from the rest of the village, the reason being that all of the original houses were all burned to the ground in the 17th century after an outbreak of the plague, thus ridding the area of infection. Close by is a second deserted medieval village, Sudwell, which was mentioned in the Domesday Book but appears to have been abandoned by the mid-16th century, long before the plague came to town. The church was reconstructed in 1824. The chancel, though, was left untouched, but in 1875 the nave was rebuilt and made bigger, and windows were provided for both the nave and the chancel. These were given in memory of a former rector, the Reverend William Eagleton. The east window is a beautiful leaded affair depicting the Nativity, Crucifixion and Resurrection. The font just inside the door is medieval. Interestingly, this one also has a reused coffin lid, which today makes for a stone doorstep leading into the porch. The roof has unusual carvings of flowers and faces, which may have been part of an earlier roof or reused from another church. Okay, now I'm making my way down a path that leads from the church back into civilization, because remember, the church is a long way from civilization. Very narrow, this path. Green on the sort of right hand side of me, your left, because there's a massive tall hedge. About to reach the end though. So here we go. There we are. Here's the end, back to the road. We're turning right here, and I'm about to go up another path off to the right up there. It'll take us towards a set of houses which are quite interesting, and houses is really all that's left on this walk now as we make our way back to the beginning. Not far from the pub again, here we have a row of cottages. These were originally built for farm labourers who worked in the fields in the villages around Bourne. They exist thanks to wealthy and influential farmers who once sat on the council and ensured decisions for such developments were made in their favour. Councils don't run like that anymore, do they? And with that, we're done with Swayfield. Who'd have thought a small village near Grantham would have a connection to the Spanish Armada? I sure wouldn't have, but isn't it amazing what research can throw up? Join me tomorrow as we continue through South Kesteven to see what else is out there to unearth. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.